And I'm so thrilled to actually have South Africa's host of The Bachelor. He's Jason Greer. You've seen him for 2 seasons now. Jason, thanks so much for joining us on this podcast.
Thanks. It's really cool to be here, man. This is, I think, actually the first interview that I've done for The Bachelorette. So
damn straight.
It's actually, I know, it's exciting. Considering we're launching next week. I mean, airing next week.
Yeah, February's the big month where The Bachelorette kicks off. It's the first South African Bachelorette, but you've had 2 seasons of The Bachelor, and really that's gone quite well. I mean, what's the ratings been like on this show?
I mean, the ratings obviously just gone from strength to strength. I mean, we look at the first Bachelor, which broke all sorts of YouTube records because the first episode was on YouTube, and it was a phenomenal success. And then riding off the back of that success, we opened up to the second Bachelor. And I think what made the second season of The Bachelor also so successful was the fact that it was airing during a lot of lockdown. So people were kind of at home, not being forced to watch it, of course, but being home, and it was on. And I think people watched it, which was amazing. So it was really, really successful. And of course, now this is going to be the very first Bachelorette. So this is also going to be hopefully incredibly successful as well. Considering the fact that we've got, I mean, Qiniso as the Bachelorette is just stunning. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how audiences take to her.
So Jason, tell us a little bit more about your Bachelor journey. I mean, not necessarily how you went from single to being married, but I mean, how did you get onto the show? How did you end up hosting this show? I mean, how did that all come together?
I was very fortunate in that literally I got a phone call saying, listen, there's this opportunity for you to go and host a show. Would you be keen? Like, well, a show. Okay, great job. Go and audition for this show. And then it was really just like a day before I went through that they said it was for The Bachelor. There was a couple of things that needed to be ticked off, like the fact that you need to be married, because you can't be looking at the girls in The Bachelor going, I like her. So you need to be married. That was one of the prerequisites. And I went through. I did a screen test and got along really well with the director, exec producers. Of course, I've been in the Mnet sort of fraternity for a number of years as well. So we knew that we all work really well together. And it just, hopefully, I'm hoping it became a good fit. And I've really enjoyed the time on the show so far. It really has been a lot of fun, and obviously growing with the show as well, and growing with the format of the show and how it all works has been quite exciting.
Well, you've mentioned it now, and I thought that was quite an interesting point you raised, that you had to be married to actually host the show, so you don't start thinking that it's your show and not The Bachelor's show. But
also, it's to stop the girls as well on The Bachelor from going, he's single. I'm not too sure if I like The Bachelor. I like him. So there was also a thing that had to, we had to go away with that.
Well, as an additional fail-safe, they've also limited your time that you actually really spend on the show, because I believe that you're really only on for those pockets of time and then you're gone. So you don't really hang around afterwards and join the cocktail party or whatever, the pool party. You're just there to do the intro and you're out, right?
Dude, I facilitate the rose ceremonies. I facilitate the cocktail parties, any sort of drama untoward, and some of the group dates as well. But I mean, it's really not about me at all. It's about the relationship between the Bachelorette and Bachelors, to get to know the other people. I mean, I'm really just the kind of a segue, the big brother, the sort of, I wouldn't say father of the show, but I'm just kind of make things happen,
Well, tell us a little bit more about the first episode that's coming up now. It's normally the big one where the guys arrive in all sorts of fanfare, if it's a fancy car or a horse or a hot air balloon or whatever it is that they do in South Africa for the Bachelorette. But it's an hour show, or just under an hour. But how long does it really take to film all of that?
So I think the first episode will be over an hour. It might be an hour and a half, because the first episode is always the big reveal, of all the contestants, if you will call them that. And to film that, we start shooting literally as it gets dark. So of course we're shooting in summer, so it gets dark fairly late. And we end up finishing that shoot on the red carpet where Qiniso gets to meet everyone. And of course the cocktail party for 5 o'clock the next morning.
So it's a long night.
So it's an incredibly long night. And even though it's summer, it was so cold. where we shot. And you'll see next week where we shot it all. But it was so cold. Gosh, that evening was it was unbearably cold. And I feel so bad for Qiniso because, of course, she's in this beautiful gown, freezing, and at like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning. It's quite something.
Well, considering this is your first interview around the Bachelorette 2021, I mean, is there anything you can reveal or anything that you can share, like a bit of an exclusive tidbit around the show?
So nothing's been cleared with me by the PR team. So I don't know what I can and can't say. All I can say is that there's some very interesting characters on the show, and some really sort of dark horses, if you will. You'll see these guys coming on the red carpet, and you go, "Nah, he's not going to last." Meanwhile, he lasts. It's fascinating how this has all turned out. It really has been quite a journey, an incredibly experience. I think what I've enjoyed about this season is the fact that I get to interact a lot more with the guys, purely because I'm no threat, if you call it that, to Qiniso, because it's them after her. In The Bachelor, it was a bit difficult. I wasn't really allowed to spend much time with the ladies because of that fact. But now with the guys, I mean, I got along really well with them. And in fact, in one of the cocktail parties, we actually share a shot together, which was quite fun. Which obviously I wasn't able to do in the last couple of seasons.
Well, one of the interesting things I also observed with a lot of the international formats when it comes to the Bachelorette, and when there's a lot of guys vying for one lady, is that there ends up sort of being a bit of a build-up of camaraderie amongst the guys. And often you see the Bachelorettes kind of intervening and going, well, are you guys here for each other, or are you guys coming to see me? Or, it almost becomes like a resurrection of a res, or a sort of a boys club. It's quite fascinating.
It's weird that, they say that men bond through experiences, right? And women bond through conversation. Now, so during the experience of them all being in the mansion together and all experiencing the same things, they really formed a really close-knit group of friends. They all became brothers in arms. Whereas on The Bachelor, the first couple of seasons, yes, the girls were friends, but not really so chummy in the house. Subsequent to the mansion, a number of them have become really good friends after the show's finished. Here, you will see these guys all such budding bromances like you will not believe. And they're all really good friends. In fact, I think a lot of them are still friends even after the show's finished shooting. So you'll see that definitely in this season as well.
So you mean they've walked away with something, some sort of relationship, even if it's not married?
Yes.
They've got a new drinking buddy or a new golf buddy or whatever it is.
Yeah, possibly drinking buddy. I don't know if any of them played golf, actually. No, I don't think so.
So, Jason, from your perspective, I mean, you've hosted now 2 of these seasons. You're going into the 3rd one now. What's it like from a presenting perspective? Because we've seen that the international Bachelor and Bachelorette hosts have almost become typecast. I mean, they are the hosts of the Bachelorette Australia, the Bachelor United States. You almost can't imagine them doing anything else except, host these shows.
Well, in South Africa, I think it's a little bit different and difficult because we never really have shows that last more than 1 or 2 seasons, usually. So to have a 3rd season of a show, I'm very chuffed about it. And I don't mind being typecast, being the host of The Bachelor, to be honest, because it suits my image. I love wearing suits. And I enjoy the show. And I enjoy what the show's about. Finding love, Alex. Finding true love. And I think that's the best part about it all, is actually watching these journeys taking place and seeing someone find someone that they truly like and end up loving. So I don't mind being typecast for something like this. In South Africa, the pool's really small to choose from, so I don't mind. Overseas, I think it's quite a large selection of different shows that these people can host. I mean, if I think about it, Chris Harrison, who hosts The Bachelor, also hosts Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Osher Gunsberg, who does Bachelor Australia, he does Bachelor and he does Idols. In fact, I think he does The Masked Singer as well in Australia. So they're able to branch out. We don't have that many shows here. I know Love Island's going to be starting soon, but that would be too closely related, hosting The Bachelor and Love Island. And I know they've got Leonie Durant, who's hosting Love Island. So that's quite interesting. I'm looking forward to that.
people really get invested in this show. Like, you know, they start picking their favorites. They start having the ones they hate, the ones they love. I mean, do you see a lot of that then unfolding on social media? Does it get quite nasty? Do
Yeah.
people become quite vicious? Or are people generally quite real about the fact that this is a TV show and this is how things generally work?
That's the best part about the show. Everyone watching the show starts relating to different characters and seeing themselves as those characters and understanding, not understanding what these guys are really going through. They're just seeing what they want to see on TV from a production and from an editing perspective. They'll start telling them what they should have done. And why did you choose that person? Why did you choose that person? I would have chosen that person. How dare you choose that person? And then they would verbalize it through social media. And unfortunately, the people who go onto the show, the ladies from season 1 and season 2, they got a lot of flack on social media, and it's unnecessary. We all understand that social media can be really harsh, because again, it's people behind keyboards. They don't know the people. What's interesting though about the show is that you're obviously going to get the haters, you're going to get the lovers, and the haters, as much as they hate a character, because remember, once you're on TV, you're no longer a real person. You're a character. You're the lover, you're the fighter, you're the jock. You know, you become a character, and not necessarily what we do, but how the audience perceives you. They perceive you as that character, and therefore you are that character. You're not a real person. So I'm going to talk to you about your character. They could hate you as a jock, and they'll lambaste you all over social media, but they meet you in real life. Gosh, they'll be the first person to run up to you and ask for a selfie. You know, so it's very interesting. But there will be that this season, definitely.
Now, I know that South African television budgets are always slightly restrained. I mean, it's not sort of the US or Australia or Europe, but have you put quite a bit behind sort of the dates? I mean, that's always sort of the draw card to a lot of the episodes is where they're going to go, what are they going to do, how ridiculous or how splendid is it going to be?
Well, look, we did what we could. We were incredibly restricted because, you know, we need to make sure that everyone understands the fact that we were shooting during lockdown. So we were very restricted into where we could go and what we could do from a COVID protocol perspective. So we did the best what we could, budget aside. We could have had $150 million. At the end of the day, the point was we weren't able to do a number of different things because of the fact that COVID was around. So we did what we could. We still made the dates look beautiful. And I think from a filming perspective, it's ranks right up there with the kind that you see overseas. Really very pretty settings, gorgeous dates, and different dates as well, which obviously you'll see.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. Tell us a little bit more about the accommodation setup with the guys. I know most of the times the ladies used to stay in the house. There was sort of like a room share kind of setup. Is it the same with the guys? Is it a very similar kind of concept?
Yeah, exactly the same. The mansion's pretty big. So the guys were, staying on one side of the mansion. Some of the guys were staying on the other side of the mansion. And Qiniso, of course, she's sleeping in another, obviously, part of the world, if you will, because you can't share the mansion with the guys. It would be, that just wouldn't work out. So they all stay in the mansion, and then she'll come and visit them during cocktail parties and the various dates. So yeah, they all stay together. We find out who the snorers are. We find out who the farters are. We find out who makes the most noise, who laughs the loudest. We find all that stuff out. And I think that's quite interesting. What's interesting about the show is the fact that you don't really see the behind or off-camera things when they all go to bed, when they first wake up in the morning. But it comes out, and you'll see it's quite funny watching the dynamics change as the show goes on.
Well, we've had 2 bachelors now, and they ended up with a young lady, and it kind of went well for a while, and then sort of it just fizzled out. What's your take on that? Like, I mean, is there a surefire success to the show? Is there a certain way to approach it that you could walk away with some sort of success? Or what makes those relationships only last for a certain time and then sort of just fade away?
I think, if you look at the series overseas in the US, the success rate hasn't been great overseas. Australia, the very first season, those 2 people are still together, and they've just had their first kid. And I think it's, you know what, you get put into this bubble, if you will. Forget COVID for a moment, but you're still put into this bubble, first season, second season, where you are the only guy with 20-odd ladies. There's 20-odd ladies and you're the only guy. So there's going to be eventually a natural form of attraction. You're not exposed to any external elements. There's nobody else besides those girls in the bubble. There's no real life situations that you find where there's no cameras around. So it's really difficult. So you're forced into that situation to find someone that you click with. And you do find someone that you click with. But when real world reality, or when reality kicks in, and you go to this event and that event, and there's no more cameras anymore, and you can start being a bit more yourself, sometimes it might not work out in that regard. But if you look at season 2, Mark and Mauricia, they're still together, and they very much still together. I know there was a bit of a hiccup at one stage, but they're back.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that. It's almost like you become disconnected from reality, and then suddenly, after weeks of sitting in this sort of dome or this bubble of almost an unreality, almost a fantasy, you're now having to deal with the everyday issues of taking out the garbage, going to the shops, and also, I guess there's also this weird period where you know what's happened, because this is all pre-recorded. I mean, none of this is live, so you kind of have to keep everything under wraps until the show has basically run its course.
You know, you're not living together. That's the other thing. You're not sharing each other's space 24/7. And I think that's what's interesting about the whole Mark and Mauricia thing, is the fact that literally as the show started airing, they were already together. And because everyone in the whole country was now in lockdown, they were almost forced to share the same space together, so, which is brilliant. And I think that's what's really kind of just made things work for them. But yeah, I think it's not real world dating. You don't just go and date that one person, and then maybe a couple nights later you see them again, and a couple nights later you see them again, just that one person. Yeah, you're seeing a whole bunch of people at once. So it's not what's the word? It's not real, but it is real, because all the feelings and all the tears and all the rest of it that you see on the show, those are real. So it's, yeah.
Jason, do you also become the shoulder to cry on for a lot of the contestants who are either the Bachelor or the Bachelorette once the show kind of stops recording? Because they must be feeling quite lonely in this process. I mean, they've got 30 potential candidates, but they don't have like that best mate that they can just phone up and say, listen, I don't know what to do here, or I'm not sure how to handle this. Do you become sort of that sounding board, or do you just leave them to their own devices and hope they sort of make the right decisions?
So you're talking about after the show?
Well, after each episode. So they've gone on a date. They've now gone through this whole rose ceremony. There's been tears. There's been all of that. Now, this individual who is now going home to sort of an isolated place wherever they stay. I mean, do they just have to kind of just live with their own thoughts, or do they kind of come to you afterwards and say, geez, Jason, that was a rough day today, or, I don't know how to deal with this, or I can't handle this anymore?
So what happens is the contestants, I'm trying to think of a better word for contestants, the would-be suitors. So the would-be suitors, they'll go on a date and they'll come back, and if things aren't going well, they discuss it with the other would-be suitors. I'm really there just to facilitate. If there are any issues, we do have a psychologist, which if there are any sort of major issues, they can go and chat to them. So when they leave the mansion, once they haven't been offered a rose, that night they'll go home, and then the next morning they go and chat to a psychologist to make sure that they're okay and understand how the whole process works. And making sure that they tick to, like, they're going to be okay to move on with the rest of their lives, and then they can be set free into the world. You must remember as well that these guys have their whole families, they have friends and all the rest to chat to, much better friends than I ever would be. I mean, I've just kind of met them as well on the show. So they need someone they can really trust and confide in, which would be their friends and family. During the show, I'm that sort of sounding board for the Bachelorette or Bachelor, if you will, on screen and off screen. We chat. There is a sort of a fine line not to be crossed between what I know about what's going in the mansion and what I need to let them know, because they need to find that out for themselves. In no way am I able to kind of give them any information about what they said. Let's say Qiniso goes on a date with one of the guys, and they come back from the date, and then Qiniso goes home and this guy goes home. When he goes back to the mansion with the other guys, I know what's happened. And if Qiniso has to ask me, so what did they all talk about after the date? I can't tell you, because that's for Qiniso and the guys to figure out.
And that's where the tension and the excitement comes. So, well, Jason, it's been great chatting to you. I think this has been quite a fascinating chat, and I look forward to some more Bachelor chat. I know we've got some plans to do some regular check-ins on this first season of the Bachelorette, but
brilliant.
The third edition of the Bachelorette franchise, because
Bachelorette,
it's a popular conversation.
So here's the thing. So I mean, there's the Bachelor and Bachelorette. They're the same, but they're not the same. They are kind of two different franchises. So this is the Bachelorette, and I'm really looking forward to chatting to you as the season progresses. I'm really looking forward to hearing what the public thinks of the guys, and what the public thinks of Qiniso as well. So it's going to be a really exciting season. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be fun.
Well, we're looking to do some YouTube lives, as this thing progresses, so we can get people to interact, and we can maybe get some previous contestants on as well, and those things, and and then always to see who gets the final rose.
What rose is that?
It's my Lego rose. I mean, I got this from Lego at some point, and I always thought, why would you do something like this? But obviously, there's use for it. But then for the guys, it's a boutonnière, I think they call it, huh? Or I think that's the correct pronunciation. I actually looked this up at some point. So
very French.
This should be fun. Yeah, very, the French say they were the best words. So, Jason Greer, thank you so much for joining us for this interview, and look forward to catching up with you as we progress.
Dude, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate the chat. I'm looking forward to chatting to you again soon. Definitely.